it's hard to wrap my head around it because you're supposed to practice what you preach, right? And to see this happen, I think it's evidence of a deeper issue.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So, my next story, we're going to move on to talking about the NEA, the National Education Association, which is the largest union in the United States. It's the largest education union, but it's the largest labor union overall. There are about 3 million members in the NEA, and you may remember from last week that the NEA's own staff went on strike. The NEA always has its annual representative assembly the week of 4th of July. It is the biggest democratic deliberative body in the world, is my understanding. In other words, the biggest room full of folks all voting on stuff at the same time. And, it's a very fascinating event. And the NEA staff union, NESO, NEASO, which is a local affiliate of the National Staff Organization, NSO, they represent various staff employees of the NEA, right? So a lot of folks outside the union world may not recognize that, unions are big enough to have employees. Unions are employers in their own right. And in most cases, the employees of these unions have their own staff unions. Sometimes they're affiliated with, other international unions. Sometimes they're more independent. In this case, NSO, the National Staff Organization, they may have one or two bargaining units outside of the NEA universe, but it's basically by and large for employees who work for NEA or the state affiliates, any of the, education associations out there across the country. So NEA went on strike, or NEA staff went out on strike last week. They shut down the NEA RA. That's a big deal. It's a big escalation. And it's also interesting because President Biden was scheduled to speak at the NEA RA as well. So he canceled that speech. And NESO, of course, appreciated that, appreciated the president respecting the picket line and not breaking the picket line. So that kind of brought the RA to a halt. For background, the strike action follows unfair labor practice charges that were filed against the NEA, alleging refusal to furnish bargaining information and unilateral changes over working conditions. There was also a previous ULP, is my understanding, and there's been concerns about a manager allegedly assaulting a staff member and then retaliating once the alleged assault was reported. So once the strike happened at Philadelphia at the NEA RA, it's my understanding that NEA responded by canceling people's hotels and their travel home. Now, this is the first big strike action with NEA staff since the 1970s, as far as I'm aware. So this is a pretty unprecedented deal in some ways. But in other ways, this has been building for a long time. I remember us talking about NESO's contract negotiations this time, maybe 3 years ago on this program, and things were a little dicey then. I remember us covering on this program, I guess about a year or so ago, the other staff union, ASFE, ASFE, other, support staff employees of the National Education Association. And things were pretty tense with those contract negotiations as well. And there's also been issues with some of these state affiliates of the NEA. Just this week, I came across my radar that the NSO affiliate up in Michigan has filed unfair labor practice charges against the Michigan Education Association during their contract negotiations. I've seen public chatter from the NSO about some of the issues in Arizona's Education Association and Virginia Education Association in terms of the management there. You know, longtime listeners will know that I personally worked for the Alabama Education Association, the NEA affiliate down here in the state. So I'm pretty well aware of some of the management of these kind of institutions. So, you know, there's been this past of labor tension within the country's largest labor union. And I think that's an interesting conundrum, right? To be the largest labor union in the country and then have your own labor problems. But it really escalated this week. It took off to a whole nother level. So on Monday, supporters of NESO got an email because Sunday night, they received an email from NEA leadership. And what it did is say they were locked out. There is an official lockout. The NESO members were told not to report to work on Monday, July 8th. So in response, of course, NESO members rallied in front of the NEA headquarters in D.C. To show support, and they have received a lot of support from NEA members as well as NSO members across the country. It's very, you know, it's wild. It's wild to see a union lock out its own employees.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
I guess you just, you know, it's hard to wrap my head around it because you're supposed to practice what you preach, right? And to see this happen, I think it's evidence of a deeper issue. There's deeper issues within these institutions, right? And I'll circle back to that. But so the lockout started this week, and also within this message, NEA said that all pay and benefits associated with employment with NEA cease with this protective lockout. Bargaining unit employees will receive notices related to COBRA and any other benefit information. Your NEA medical, dental, and healthcare FSA coverage under the plan will end on July 31st, 2024. So, of course, the union responded that this behavior threatens the well-being, the health, the safety of all the NSO members. It sets a dangerous precedent that threatens the labor movement as a whole, right? To lock out your folks and take away their benefits. So, you know, NESO is engaged in they have engaged in two legally protected unfair labor practice strikes. These were each in response to specific complaints which were filed with the National Labor Relations Board. The union says, quote, if NEA, the nation's largest labor union, questions the legality of these actions, it shows school districts and corporations they can do the same for workers across the country. NEA leaders are not only willing to throw their employees under the bus, they are willing to harm NEA members and the future of the labor movement too. Wow. So NEA headquarters was the site of a rally, as I mentioned, pickets, and both NEA rank and file members, NEA leaders, as well as, you know, other staffers from state affiliates. Everyone's been kind of sending in their support and solidarity. And here, I also wanted to quote NSO, or the NESO as well, the staff union, when they said, quote, we believe in an NEA that meets the union standards of its own members, of its staff, and of labor and public education allies. We will fight to create that organization. That starts with demanding that leadership end the lockout so that we can get back to bargaining a fair contract without intimidation and serving the NEA members we care so much about. So that was Monday. As the lockout continued, NESO, the staff union, you know, continued rallying at headquarters, continued to gain allies. The bargaining team did return to the table this week, apparently. They didn't have very good things to report based on what I'm seeing. Not a lot of movement at the table, unfortunately. And of course, when you've already locked out your employees, it's not a very positive context to have these negotiations. So there was actually an email sent out by NESO, by the staff union, this week where they laid out some of the proposals between NEA and the staff union on telework protections and contractor accountability, on salary and pay equity. I mean, it's wild to me that you let the negotiations get to this point. If nothing else, just from like a self-interested PR perspective, right? Like, if you're NEA, why would you let yourself go down this road? Because a lockout is a failure. It's a failure to negotiate. It's a failure to reach a deal. And it's a real insult to the labor movement. It's an insult to workers everywhere. So as I was saying, I think this really speaks to toxic work environment that has been building for some time within NEA and within too many of its affiliates. And I think teachers and custodians and school bus drivers and all the other public school employees across this country, the 3 million of them that belong to the National Education Association, they need to be asking tough questions of their union. And I say union, of course, down here in Alabama, they don't even claim unionism. They're a quote-unquote professional organization, a professional association, where your boss can also join, right? So there's some real issues and contradictions that need to be wrestled with, and I would encourage public school employees to get informed and to be thinking about what this says when your own union treats its own employees this way. What does that really say about the leadership? What does that say about the vision that they have moving forward? What does that say about the way that they are fighting for workers and they will fight for workers? It's a big concern. I think it points to some deeper structural issues within the NEA, and I believe that rank and file educators have to get involved and have to fight for a real union that will practice what it preaches, and that will do its best to actually live up to union values. I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame on the entire movement. So I send my love and solidarity to the staff of NEA, to the NEA staff organization, to those union brothers and sisters and siblings. Appreciate all that you do. Appreciate all that you do to fight for educators in your day job. To be treated this way by your employer, who should know better. To see, a union act like a corporation, it's pretty pathetic. So we are definitely sending our love and solidarity to the NEA employees. We are wishing them much luck at the bargaining table. Hopefully things will turn around. I, again, encourage NEA members to contact NEA. The NEA staff organization, the staff union, has put out information there. I'll plug their website here if you want to just follow along. I really encourage you to do that, especially those of you who are members. You can go to neasomatters.org. That's NEASO matters.org. Check that out. Sign up for their email list. Send the message to NEA executive director, to the NEA president. Let them know how you feel about this and that you've noticed the way they're treating their own employees.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free
to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.